Hello everybody, welcome back to computerhandle.com. So, whilst I was working in the last two chapters of this course, I came to find out that many of my peers and students are using artificial intelligence, AI chatbots, to actually help them learn pseudocode and basic programming concepts or basic ambiguities which they may have, which is a very good tool itself. But I see them using very critical mistakes whilst using such tools. So whilst I thought that whilst I'm working on the last chapters, I thought that perhaps let's create a lecture, out of the session lecture on exactly the basic things you need to keep remember whilst you use AI chatbots to actually help you learn the basic concepts of programming. So let's hop onto our computer, which is opened right here. And as you can see that we are using the OpenAI, the famous OpenAI's chatbot called ChatGPT, and it's the 3.5 free version, and I have made sure to use the free version because majority of the people here will have the free version. So let's start on. Let's actually open computerhandle.com as well. Computer handle. Here we go. Computer handle is opening. Let me open some of the lectures. Let's actually open pseudocode. Hang on a second. Yeah. So let's get started on with the basic concepts. First of all, we'll tell the AI chatbot, ChatGPT, to actually help us know what it would output, which means that we're going to see and observe and analyze the output it's going to give us compared to a program, watch what it might take, because it doesn't give a direct answer in terms of pseudocode. So how do you interpret what it's giving? Let's see that. So first of all, we'll have a sample question in my mind, and let's recall the sample question from chapter 1 flowcharts, which was actually the basketball question. So let's say that create a program where an age of a person is entered, and if the age is 18 or more, output that he is eligible to apply for the basketball team. Otherwise, output that he is not eligible. Alright, let's see what it returns us. Because of course in pseudocode this is a very simple question. It has a very simple answer as well. But let's see what it actually outputs. Let's analyze the output, what it gives. So I'm going to hit enter, and first of all, to a beginner or an intermediate learner out there, they'll immediately get confused that what on earth is this? This ain't pseudocode. Well, we never mentioned pseudocode. We just said create a program, and it created in the most popular programming language, Python. So Python learners out there may find it slightly useful, but it's not that useful for beginners. So what you should do, you should avoid such things. And always remember, here's the first key take of this lecture. We're going to copy, paste again, but this time we're going to say that we need pseudocode. And when we say that it generates a response first in pseudocode, hang on a second, it's giving us, well, it's pseudocode, but it wasn't an answer I was expecting. It was supposed to be Markdown. But alright, let this be. It's still understandable. Like a flowchart, we have a start and an end, but we don't write start and an end in pseudocode, but this has written start and an end because this is the Arduino programming language, but we can very easily understand this, and especially with the gray highlighted comments. Keep remember that the gray, slightly low opacity text in a program are always comments, which means that these are the letters or sentences which is actually going to make you understand. They are not a part of the program. They're going to make you understand the program itself. And so you say that display is something we use print instead of display, and if, else, and if, everything is as it is. Yeah, read age is input age. That's the only difference. And you might not get the same answer. Suppose, let's regenerate this response again. Let's copy and paste it again. So it may give you in another programming language, very similar to pseudocode, very similar to what this, but it might have a single change. So this time it also gave us an Arduino. I'm going to actually go ahead and start a new chat. I'm going to then, what I was expecting in first of all, Markdown. This is actually English sentences, not pseudocode program itself, but these are English sentences which is required to help you understand the program itself. And actually it's like more like a program, or it's just pseudocode. But instead just remove a start and an end if it's not even compulsory to add it. And so this is what you may get. You may also get the code from Arduino, and you may also get the code from Markdown. All right, and suppose you want to translate this into your pseudocode language, or into your pseudocode understanding. All you have to do is replace output with print, remove the start and end, and that's how we write it. It's actually, and of course add endif. Endif is very important, especially for examinations. And that's it. I mean, there's nothing else we have to do here. And it gives you English sentences. Let's suppose, in the same chat, let's give it another question. For example, create a program where a number is entered, and if the number is even, it outputs even. Otherwise, it outputs odd. One thing to notice, I never said if the number is odd, because there are only two possible cases. If the number is not even, it will automatically be not odd. Alright, so there we go. It's as simple. And if you want to create it into our own understanding, all you have to do is remove the start, end, remove the output with print, and add an endif. And in fact, if you use the same for examination instead of our format, it doesn't really make a difference. You actually will score equal marks for a question in the exam for what we do. So it doesn't really make a difference, but it's understandable. And this is how we interpret the data given. So if we head back onto our chat, the previous one, you can see that it gave us an Arduino, and many of you may find it in Arduino as well. Many of you may find it in the Markdown, which the English sentences which we saw before, and many of you may also find it in something else. Now, one last thing of this section of the lecture. If you eventually have to learn a programming language, it's always a good idea to actually tell them to regenerate the response and to regenerate it in the programming language you're willing to learn. So suppose that eventually after pseudocode, you're willing to learn C++. You're going to say regenerate the same response, but instead do it in C++. That's it. And it's going to generate you a response which is going to be slightly lengthy but understandable using the gray comments, the gray sentences, and then compare this with your pseudocode. Just compare it for a second and you will understand many things, and especially how the syntax, most importantly, how the syntax of the program works. So it's not necessary to go this in detail at first, but you can always use this to try and understand the syntax of the programming language you're actually are about to learn, which you are more than willing to learn. So, and it also gives you a quick explanation on that the cin object is used to read the user's input, which means that cin, it's inputting the age. Cout means outputting the age. And you might not understand this again, but if you eventually here to learn C++, it's always a good practice to actually always regenerate response in C++, so that you try to grasp a little bit on programming language. And of course, one way to identify C++ is CPP. You know how it works. So that's the basically file identifier for a program in C++. So whilst now we've done on how to actually interpret the output the AI chatbot gives us, and the type and language, Arduino, CPP, Markdown, Python, how it returns the basic output. Let's now assume that I want to learn a new topic. I want to learn a new topic from ChatGPT. How do I do that? Well, the basic thing to do is just tell him the name of the topic, tell him the different types, or you can say the different sections of the topic, then tell him to give some example questions. All right, just example questions, no answers. Well, actually give them with answers, because first of all, you may have to see answers, then you move on to practice. So let's try on with a single topic. So suppose that you are willing to learn condition loops. So let's move on to condition loops. That, for example, I'm an novice and I want to learn condition loops. So to learn and start on with condition loops, I'll start typing that what are condition-based loops? What types of condition-based loops are there? What are the differences in between them? And provide 2 example questions with pseudocode answers. Provide 2 example questions with pseudocode answers to the same topic. Here we go. And here the Wikipedia starts. It just starts off by actually explaining you in very basic words. It's not basic, it's actually very basic, and hence I definitely recommend using AI chatbot to actually help on and starting to get a new concept in programming. So suppose that I'm a novice and I don't know what condition-based loops are. Let's go through over the code here. Go through over the output here. It has given us. Condition-based loops are programming constructs that allow you to execute a block of code repeatedly as long as a certain condition is true. If you read this 2 or 3 times, if not 1 time, and if you're focused, I don't think this sentence may have an issue, especially on younger students. And there are 3 types of condition-based loops. Here we go. He's given us the 3 types of condition-based loops. Now, one thing which is slightly different, that it has also mentioned for loop as a condition-based loop. Well, that's because for loop is also a type of condition-based loop in the world of computer science, because it actually has a condition that if the program is repeated 20 times, then stop. Well, that's for loop, but that's also a condition-based loop, an account-based loop. But essentially, it has, in the assembly language, in the binary code, it has a condition which has to be met true before it can exit the loop. So it has given, as a novice, let's go back to the novice life. We have 3 different types of loops, and it explains you each and everything about the loop. It does the while loop, it does the do while loop and for loop. So here's the thing. The thing is that I just wanted to see the condition, while loop and repeat until loop. This do while is, by the way, repeat until loop. And it has actually mentioned the difference quite well. Inside the loop, at least once. It guarantees the block of the code will be executed at least once. And so I think that actually makes it clear. Main differences, it's given the main differences here. And it's actually given it in very clear and easy words. You can see that the while loop has potentially resulting in 0 iterations. The while loop can also result in 0 iterations, but the do while loop will check the code at least once. So even if you have a theoretical question in your examinations, if you're preparing for one, I think that this is a really good tool. This is a really good tool compared to your textbook in preparing for this. Of course, I'm not encouraging you to disregard your textbook. You have to read your textbook, but it's a very good tool, man. All right, and then it's got some sample questions, and of course it's not pseudocode again. It's not as such pseudocode, but it's very similar to pseudocode that you will be able to understand it very, very easily. And so reader number, reader number is input number, and set factorial equal to 1. Set means just factorial equal to 1. And for I12 number, set factorial, just ignore the set because set means it's a process. All right, factorial is equal to factorial into I, so this is a factorial program, and then display is for output. Well, in VB.NET we also had console.writeLine, which is it has not used, but still understandable for a novice. So you can actually learn, you just from this one question you give to the AI chatbot, you actually have the entire topic with example questions prepared from you. So now the last thing of this lecture is that after, for example, having done such topic, you say that you want some practice. So and it's a very good tool to actually help you generate some questions, and you can try and practicing them yourselves, and then you can tell them to give you the answers, and you can compare your answer with their answer, and you can actually point out a mistake. So more practice, people, of course, makes person perfect. Practice makes person perfect. So let's try an example. So the check number 1 is, suppose, let's go back to the even and odd example. So if create 5 questions for, actually not create, let's just say create, wait, let's be very simple, create a question for a pseudocode program. All right, it'll just create a simple random question. So that's a very easy question, and actually we haven't, I don't think we have done this, but it can be done very easily. So let's so as a novice, you may try to solve this question yourself. Take a piece of paper, take a pen, the most powerful tool on earth, and try to solve it yourself on paper. And once you solve, hit now give me the answer, and hit return. So it's going to give you the answer, and then compare, as we did in our lectures, compare your answer with their answer instead of my answer this time. And so it's giving you in the VB.NET programming language this time, but again, it's always understandable because pseudocode answer, it says itself that it's very similar to pseudocode. All you have to do in this case is remove the set, try to interpret and analyze the data, and you may be very well easy to understand this. You know very well that read number is input. So you can also say create 5 more questions. And it will create 5 more questions, and then to each and every question you can have you can ask for an answer. For example, now I'll say need answer to question 4. This man never gets tired. So just keep asking this, and trust me, it's going to give you an answer closest possible to pseudocode. This time, see, it's giving you in Java, but it's understandable. Yeah, it's understandable. So that's all for this. But yeah, one more thing: if you are to only use a selected topic, for example, if you want a question for a selected topic, do mention that as well. So create a pseudocode question for me, which involves a for loop, as it's simple. And it's going to give you actually a question that involves a for loop. And then you say, give me the answer. It's going to give you the answer. So it's very easy for you to set your different own conditions and types of topics. All right, so before I conclude this lecture, let me just give you some final tips before we actually shut off the video camera. The important tips for the first thing is, don't rely on this very heavily. It's just a tool, which means that if you're preparing for self-learning, or if you are someone at home who has changed the career and who is learning programming for the basic concepts, so for them this tool is very good. But if you are to prepare for examinations, use this tool to grasp your concepts, but always refer to a teacher, as according to different exam boards, your syllabus and the Pseudocode style may vary slightly. So always refer to your textbook and of course your teacher if you're preparing for GCSE or A-level examination or any of the equivalent, or perhaps even according to American standard education. The second the second note I want to give before I conclude is, again, do as much as practice as possible, because practice makes a person perfect. You can also use ChatGPT as a checker. So as we just said, that you can you can actually have questions from your own exam board's past papers, and you can just type the question to this and it can have it solved for you and explained for you, because as far as I recall, the mark scheme never actually explains you the answer well. It just gives you the answer, so it can help you explain the answer as well. So it's a very good tool after all. And yeah, one last tip, and this is probably the very important one: try not to regenerate the same response again, because it mentions here ChatGPT can make mistakes. So if you usually because the questions are very, very simple, at least till 30-40 lines of code, that usually 99.9% the answer it'll give you is correct. So if you hit regenerate response, it's going to think the previous answer was wrong. So it's going to generate a new answer which actually have a high chance of being wrong. Perhaps the new answer may be 50% wrong. We never know. There's 50% chance the new answer will be wrong. So we can't say that for sure. So take care of that and try that you use minimal, that you regenerate the exact same response at minimum times. Alright, so that's it for this lecture. I hope this lecture has helped you in understanding how we can use any AI chatbot, possibly OpenAI's chatbot, to actually learn and help us in understanding basic pseudocode concepts and in programming, because it actually gives you the program of it. All right, and please don't use it in your mobile phone. It's going to hurt your eyes, it's going to kill your eyes, it's going to make you wear a lot of glasses every day. Instead, just use a computer or a tablet. It may be good enough for such uses. So take care, everybody, and see you in the remaining part of the course. Bye-bye.